Hi. Immediately after purchasing a new MECHA, and before changing any settings, the device operates with its factory settings. Additionally, a factory reset procedure restores MECHA to its factory settings. We have already published 2 videos demonstrating how to restore MECHA to its factory settings, one for the C1 controller and one for the C2 controller. In today's video, we will discuss some MECHA factory settings using a C1 controller. To be able to change these settings, you will either need to access the configuration page or use specific codes. To access the configuration page, you can use a smartphone, as MECHA operates in AP mode by default. Here are the steps. 1. Tap the settings icon on your device. 2. Under Wireless and Networks, ensure Wi-Fi is turned on, then tap Wi-Fi. 3. Tap the network containing MECHA in its name to connect the smartphone to MECHA. 4. The default password for MECHA's network is 12345678. Enter the password, then tap the Connect button. 5. Confirm maintaining the Wi-Fi connection, if necessary. Now MECHA's user interface can be accessed on a smartphone's browser at the static IP address 192.168.8.1. Tap the Go button. The username and password required to access the configuration page are admin and MECHA. Tap the Sign In link. The first setting you see on this page is the default mode, AP. The connection mode for the current work session can also be changed without accessing the configuration page. Immediately after powering on MECHA, when the LEDs flash in a specific pattern, if you press 3, for example, the connection mode changes to AP plus STA, and the dynamic IP address is displayed on the IP line at the end of the configuration page. Fixed settings are settings that take priority over common preset settings on the row page. For example, if you set a motor speed here, you will not be able to change it on the row page when creating a preset. Enter 0 in the beep field to disable beeping sounds. MECHA can be set to turn off while charging to charge faster, or it can be set to stay on to continue using it as usual. The rotator in use can be set by selecting an option from this list. Auto instructs MECHA to detect the rotator automatically. The inverted setting must be enabled on the configuration page if you are mounting the rotator upside down under a turntable. The noise from E Rotators can be reduced by selecting this option and then testing different arrow button speeds. Hide some controls in the web UI when a motor is running. With this option enabled, you will notice that some controls are automatically hidden while the motor is running. The Nodal Ninja IR remote allows you to control MECHA without touching the controller buttons. To do so, you must first connect the receiver to MECHA's AUX port and also check the Use Nodal Ninja IR Remote checkbox on the configuration page. The power button on the remote can be used to power MECHA off by either long pressing or double pressing it. However, powering MECHA off by double pressing is possible only if this option is enabled. Double press the Nodal Ninja IR Remote power button for power off. The remote power button cannot be used to power MECHA on. Only the controller power button can be used for this purpose. Camera orientation is portrait by default. Unchecked indicates landscape orientation. The preferred MSS pattern is SL, MDU, ZZ, NN by default. MECHA takes these settings into account when generating a shooting pattern, or script, for a given focal length. The first part of an MSS pattern refers to the position of the upper rail, which can be either SL, level, SP, parked, or SR, raised. The last part indicates the number of images for zenith and nadir. MECHA replaces the middle part with the computed script. Arrow button speed is the rotational speed when a button is held down. If the RPM is 0, pressing MECHA's directional buttons will start the rotator slowly and accelerate it if the button is kept pressed. This is useful for precise alignment using the controller or IR remote buttons. Arrow button's interval speed is the rotational speed over a certain interval. Arrow buttons interval 1, rotation angle for buttons, left and 1, right and 1. Arrow buttons interval 2, rotation angle for buttons, left and 2, right and 2. Arrow buttons interval 3, rotation angle for buttons, left and 3, right and 3. Favorite codes feature allows you to assign 3 of your favorite codes to buttons 1, 2, and 3 on the controller. Then, to use a code, you only need to long press that button. The code assigned by default to button 1 is 321. It displays the last part of the IP address on the controller LEDs. Factory presets are listed in the presets list by default. The firmware version and the last part of the IP address are displayed on the LEDs at the end of the startup sequence. Finally, press the Apply button to save the new settings. You should hear a beep if beeps are not turned off. Thank you for watching.